There is this one technique that I bet you're not using, but it makes all the difference. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to take your video to the next level by adding this little thing. It's so easy, you can start doing it right now. Actually, you can start doing it after watching this video. Before we get into things, let me know in the comments which video you think is better. Is it this one? Or this one? If you voted for the first one, I don't know what to tell you, because it's obviously the second one, and here's why. Have you ever watched a video on YouTube where it felt like you were right there with the person? You could imagine yourself being in that exact situation because you could see what was going on, you could see where you were, but you could also hear where you were. The difference between a good video and a great video is making your viewer feel something and making them part of the experience. That's how you keep them watching, like I'm keeping you watching right now. So let me explain to you what I'm doing so that you can start doing it too. Using B-roll in your video is a great way to keep your viewer engaged, whether that is actual B-roll that you put on top of a talking head video, which is known as A-roll, or as a B-roll sequence, which is just basically a montage. But adding those video clips as B-roll is only half of the work, and this is where a lot of creators stop, and I have been guilty of doing this myself. The other half of the work, which most of us skip, is audio. Either keeping the original audio in or adding sound effects will create a lot more depth to the story that you're trying to tell, and it really helps give your viewer an experience. And this is also known as diegetic sound. Diegetic sound? Hey, how do I pronounce diegetic sound?
I found this on the web for how do I pronounce DJ Dark Sound.
Diegetic sound.
Thank you, Google. According to Google, diegetic sound can include everything from the voices of characters to the sounds of objects or music coming from a radio or an instrument, anything that exists in the story world. If we bring this back to YouTube videos, it basically refers to any sound that you can hear in your B-roll, or to put it even simpler, any sound that you heard while you were filming your B-roll and therefore your viewer could have heard if they were in that exact location. So a quick and easy example is if you're shooting B-roll in a city, you hear a ton of sounds. You hear traffic, maybe a traffic light, maybe a car or people in the background. All of those sounds are diegetic sound. The simplest way of doing this is by just keeping the audio in if you have any and just lower the volume like this. It was such a great week. I met so many people. It was such an experience. But what if the audio that you recorded is just so bad? You don't need to worry, because we can totally fix that too. Actually, that sequence that I showed you in the beginning were all sound effects that I added later. Those clips didn't come with any sound at all. So let me show you how I did that so you can start doing it too. The first step is to identify the sounds. Now, what we need to do for this is we either need to bring ourselves back to the situation we were in when we were filming the video, or if you're using stock footage, we need to use our imagination and figure out what sounds we need. Coming up with this list of sound effects can be a little bit challenging, so what I would recommend you to do is to think in layers. The first layer is ambience or atmosphere. So this is, for example, city ambience or room tones or traffic, things like that. When you have that ready, it is time to start thinking a little bit more specifically. So for example, if you're in a city, you can think of a bike bell or a car honking, whatever makes sense. It's more like accent sound effects, more specific sound effects to really create that depth in your video. Now that we have at least some sort of an idea of the sound effects that we might need for our video, it is time to start looking for them. And when I do my sound design, I always go on to Epidemic Sound because they've got like 90,000 sound effects. So whatever I need, I can find on Epidemic Sound. So what I always do when I go onto Epidemic for my sound design is I go to the sound effects and then I either browse through the categories or I just type something in. So if we take a quick look at the list that I made, I think it's best to start with the base layer, which in this case is our ambience. So let's start by going to the category ambience. And then we get so many search results that I think it's a better idea to also narrow it down by clicking on traffic right here. Now what I'm seeing is that there are some specific sounds from specific places, and in this case the B-roll takes place in New York City. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try searching for New York and see what comes up. Obviously when you're looking for sound effects you do not need to take it this literally, but in this case it definitely helps. I think this one is great, but if you find a sound effect that is close to what you need, but it's not exactly it, what I would recommend you to do is to click on these two little circles right here, because that is the find similar feature. So then you just get a bunch of similar sounds, and hopefully that way you will find the sound effect that you're looking for. I find it really easy to find sound effects on Epidemic Sound. I also use music from Epidemic. I literally just use everything from Epidemic in all of my videos. I love their service. It's all in one place. You can get everything that you want for just 15 bucks a month for a personal plan. So that is, in my opinion, really, really worth it. But if you're not sure if you want to get a paid subscription, I totally get that. I can offer you the first month for free if you use the link in my description. You can get the first 30 days for free for a personal plan or a commercial plan. So if you want to work on your sound design, and my guess is that you want to because you're watching this video, I really recommend you to get the trial so you can try it out for yourself. So I just downloaded all the sound effects that I need, so let's go and hop into Premiere Pro and recreate our diegetic sound. As you can see, I already have my clips lined up, so the first thing that we'll add is our traffic ambient sound. Since this is a long track and we only need a few seconds, I'm going to double click on the track to open it up right here in the source monitor. Here I'll make my selection using the I and the O key, which is our in and our out point, or our start and our end point. And then we'll bring that to the timeline. When we've done this for all of the clips, it is time to start editing. So this one right here is the traffic track. And what I want to do is I want the traffic to be heard in the background of the first and the second clip, but not in the third one, because that is when we're inside of a metro. However, we're not just going to cut it right here at the cut of clip 2 and clip 3. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to cut it a little bit later. And the reason is that I personally think that it sounds a lot better when these sounds are introduced like J and L cuts, because this makes cuts less noticeable. So here's a quick example of a hard cut and without a hard cut. It is a subtle difference, but the second one is a lot better overall. And now to fade out the track, what we're going to do is we're going to right click right here on the end of the clip and then click on Apply Default Transitions. The second track that we have is the subway train passing by, and the same principles apply, which means that we need to introduce the sound of the train a few frames before the train is actually in the shot and apply default transitions. Let's do the same for the subway interior sound, which we will just play in the last clip because that is the only clip that we're inside a metro. Now when it comes to the quote-unquote accent sound effects that I've chosen, in this case a bicycle bell and an auto horn, I'm just gonna play some randomly because there is no bike in frame. We don't need anything to be very specific. The reason why I am adding these sound effects is because it adds a little bit more depth to the story. So now that we have everything timed, we're definitely not done yet because we still need to work on volume and some other things. So what we're going to do is we're going to be opening up the Essential Sound panel, and we do this by going to Window up here and then click on Essential Sound. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to select the ambience tracks by drawing a box over them. And then we click on ambience in the Essential Sound panel. The reason why we do this is because now we get the option to auto match the loudness of the audio to whatever is considered average for ambient sound. This is so quick and easy, and now there is no need to get into the science of sound design, so it's perfect for people like us. But if you do want a more in-depth video about sound design, and not specifically diegetic sound, but sound design, then please let me know in the comments. So one thing that we also want to do is we want to make this sound more accurate, because as you can see, this is shot in 2 different locations, so we want the loudness to match that. So we're going to do this by creating some keyframes. So let's click on the traffic track and then go to Effect Controls and then click on the little stopwatch in front of Level. Now as you can see, we've created a keyframe at the current level, so let's move that where we want the transition to start, and then let's move a few frames forward and lower the volume, and as you can see, another keyframe has now been created. Alright, it is time to do the same thing for our sound effects. So select your sound effect and then go to the Essential Sound panel and click on SFX. Then go to Loudness and click on Auto Match. And then it's just a matter of tweaking everything a little bit, like changing the volume and of course adding the song. Alright, let's have a listen. Now that you know how to do your sound design, it is time to level up our B-roll. So make sure that you click on this video right here. And make sure that you give this video a like and subscribe so that you can continue to level up your videos every week.